Hello, beautiful people, and welcome. In this video, we're talking about domain and range. We're going to talk about how to write your answers when they ask you domain and range. We're going to talk about what is another way of thinking about domain and range. And that's pretty much it in this video. If I make a mistake, let me know where the mistake occurs, so that way I can learn from my mistakes. All right, let's get started. Domain. Another way to think about domain is your inputs. Another way to think about your inputs are your X values. So what is domain? Domain is your X values. Talk about range. When we have range, we have outputs. When we have range, we have the Y values. Let's jump in right into an equation. Or let's not do an equation. Let's do an example first. In this example, it says, what is the domain and range? And what they give you in this example is they give you points. So they give you 3, 9, so they give you different relations. So 3 and 9, they have a relationship. -7 and 49 has a relationship. -1 and 1 has a relationship. 0 and 0 has a relationship. And -3 and 9 have a relationship. Okay, so how do you write domain and range? Let's go back here. What are domain? Domain are our X values. What's range? Ranges are Y values. So here's our first thinking bubble. Remember how we were in the previous video talking about X and Y's? Well, what comes first in the alphabet? X comes first in the alphabet, Y comes second. So we have our input. We have our output. So domain is all of your X values. Your range is all of your Y values. So step number 1 is you're going to label all of your X's and you're going to label all of your Y's. Here's your steps. Label X values. Step number 2, label Y values. Step number 3, you're going to write D and R. Step number 4, well, let's actually do that. So step number 1, write our X values we did. Step number 2, label your Y values. Okay, we did that. Step number 3, write D and R. So here's D, R. So we did that. Step number 4 is draw squiggly brackets for each. Now, it is your choice if you want to close those squiggly brackets because you don't know how many numbers go inside. But that's okay. I mean, if they're too big, always use an eraser and pencil and you can erase and make it smaller. So now that we have drawn the squiggly brackets, we're going to write. So for step number 5, you're going to, for D, write all X values without repeating numbers and small to large. So we want your negatives to positives, just like we have on a number line. Okay, so how would that look like? I'm going to use pencil. I have a 3, a -7, a -1, a 0, and -3. So which one's the smallest number? -7 is the smallest. Then I have -3. Then I have -1. Then I have 0. Then I have 3. And I kind of cross them out as I go so I can keep track. Now let's do the same for range. So without any repeating numbers, and we want smallest to largest. So let's pick the smallest number. Smallest number I have is 0. Then I have 1. Then I have, oh, do you see this? Do you see how I have 2 9s? I have 2 9s, but I'm only going to write it one time. Then I have 49. So you have 2 9s, but only write once. Only write it one time. And you want smallest to largest. You must have squiggly brackets. You must have it in order from smallest to largest. And you must not repeat numbers. You cannot repeat numbers. You can only have it one time. So I'm also going to show you how to do this in a mapping. Now, this is the way you want your answer. But there is another way to kind of see if something is a function or not. So I'm going to do a mapping. A mapping are two bubbles. One of them is for the domain. One of them is for the range. So what do? You follow these rules. So inside of the domain bubble, you're going to write all of your domain numbers. So -7. And the really cool about mapping is you don't have to have it in order. So if I can have -7, 3, -3 here, 0, 1, -1. And I can have extra numbers in here if I wanted to. It doesn't matter. So if I have 2, 5, 7, doesn't matter. Range, again, no repeats. No repeated numbers. Only write the number one time. So I have 9, 1, 0, 49. Let's do 49 down here so we don't get confused. And let's add 3 numbers. 3, 7, 6. Okay, mapping is pretty cool because you show the relationship between the numbers. What has a relationship? I'm looking at these points here. What has a relationship? 3 and 9 has a relationship. That is 1 input, 1 output. So far, so good. Next, we have -7 and -3. Just kidding. -7 and 49. -7 is here. 49 is here. 1 input, 1 output. -7, 49. So this is 1 to 1. This is 1 to 1. Then we have -1 and 1. This is also -1, 1. That is 1 to 1. Then we have 0 and 0. 0 to 0 is 1 to 1. Then we have -3 and 9. -3 and 9. I want to show you guys something pretty cool. Notice that 3 goes to 9 and -3 goes to 9 as well. So is this a function? This is a tricky question. 1 input goes to 1 output. 1 input goes to 1 output. So this is, yes, a function. Because we have 1 input goes to 1 output. Even though the output is shared, you are only having one x value. Okay, so keep that in mind. Alrighty, beautiful people, let's see here. I'm thinking what else that we need. Oh, another way to write domain and range is going to be as a T-chart or a table. And that is just your list. Now in a table, you would repeat numbers. So for a table, Okay to repeat. Only for a table. Mapping, no repeats. Your final answer like this, no repeats. But for a table, we can repeat. And what's cool about the table is you take these points right here and you just copy and paste. So I have 3, 9. I'm going to write 3, 9. I have, what do I have? Negative 7, 49. I have negative 1, 1, 0, 0, negative 3, 9. I'm literally just copying this down and just writing it in my table. And that's it. So when we look at the table, we know that 3 and 9 have a relationship. Negative 7 and 49 has a relationship. Negative 1 and 1 has a relationship. 0 and 0 have a relationship. And negative 3 and 9 have a relationship. All right, beautiful people, that is it for domain and range. I will see you in my next video. If I made a mistake, let me know. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.